Good evening, everybody, and welcome again to another session on the Open Door live webinar show from Property CEO. My name is Richie Clapson, and I'm one of your hosts this evening, and I'm here with the other half of Property CEO, Mr. Ian Child.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you're well.
I gave him a bit of a build up there. He likes that sort of thing. And it's great to have you here. And just in case this is your first time, what have you let yourself in for? Well, this is going to be 45 minutes long. Just after that, maybe we won't go on beyond 8 o'clock, so you'll be well away to watch what's on the telly at 8 o'clock, or get out and do some fireworks. We can hear fireworks popping off all over the place around here. But it will be non-stop positivity, all set around the theme of property development. Isn't that right, Mr. Child?
Certainly is. Richie and I run a company called propertyCEO. And basically, our day job is training people how to become successful small-scale property developers. Of course, many people like the idea of developing property, but they think it's going to be a bit risky, a bit complicated. So basically, our job is to give them the support and the training that they need to be able to do it as safely and as successfully as possible. We also think that right now there's this amazing opportunity out there, which is going to create a lot of wealth for developers. So we wanted to help people find out all about that and to see if development might be a good fit for them.
That's right. Now, as always, following anything like we've got going on now, pandemic, recession, there's always great opportunities. Some of the best businesses out there have been created on the back of recessions. So you've got a time now really to go and do something and make things happen. And of course, those that's going to be successful are the ones that go out and do it, rather than just wait for things to settle down and follow the crowd. As always, we're going to be serving up some advice, some predictions. We often have guests on. Next week, we've got a guest. We'll tell you about that a bit later. And I guess it's a little bit of training in some way. But above all, we're going to have a little bit of fun doing it. This is all about being positive. Happy to take questions. Please put questions into the chat box. And of course, no questions, no show. So put questions in and we can answer them as we get along. Tonight, we're going to be talking about deal security. What's that about? Well, that's about securing deals. If you're looking at to get a deal together and pull it together, how can you keep hold of it? And more importantly, what do new developers do wrong? So we're going to talk about deal security tonight. So hopefully that should be a bit of fun. I guess that's why you've all logged on. I'm sure it's not just because it's lockdown and you've got nothing else to do. You can't go down the pub. Promise me that. Give us a quick wave if you can see and hear us this evening, please. Put your hands up, give us a quick wave. Let's have a look. Yes, some hands have gone up. That was slow to start with. I didn't think any were going to go up. Well done. You can put your hands down. Don't keep putting them up and down. You can put them down now. That's it. Who's on this evening? Let's have a look. Wow, James is on, Andrew's on, Debs is on, Vicky's on, someone else has just popped on. Roma's on, Malcolm, Simon, Ranjit from Property Investor News, by the way. He's not even a sponsor of the show, but we keep mentioning him. I don't know why we do that. Dan's on, Doral's on. Hello, Doral. Good evening to you, my friend. Darren's on, Rebecca's on, Yvonne, Anthony, Minhaj, Giovanni, Adam, Helen, Will, Debbie, Jackie, George, Colin, Tom, Jin. I could go on. Debs is on. Did I say Debs? Debs is always on. I don't know why she's always on. Debs, you got nothing better to do? I guess not. Why not? And Debs has put in the chat box. What has she said? She always gives us a little bit of an update on what she's doing. I can guarantee I haven't even read this yet. It'll be to do with food. Good evening, chaps. Just finished my beef casserole, so now ready. You've had dinner. We haven't had dinner yet. This is the commitment we make to you guys out there. Ready for the 45 minutes of usual great content on this unusual firework night. It is, isn't it? It is. Glad we're on mute, though, as our puppies are absolutely petrified of the loud bangs going on around us. So the volume is up to the max, and we're listening to you tonight.
Fantastic.
Isn't it? And Anthony says, hello, everyone. Hello, everyone to you as well. So, hey, welcome. Guy's just joined us. Hello, Guy. Good evening. And quite a few of you look like you're new on here this evening. A lot of names I don't recognise. Some I do recognise. So welcome if you're brand new to the show. So, shall we kick things off, Ian?
Let's kick them off. So, deal security. One of the things that can quite often catch new developers out is when they get a deal and they've found a nice one. They're either looking at it and putting their ideas together, or they're making an offer and having an offer accepted. Things can still go south, and unfortunately that happens all too often in property development. large sums of money involved, and so that can often bring out the worst in people. So what can you actually do to kind of secure your deals? So once you've got an opportunity right from the get-go, so if it's something that looks good and you've got a great idea, how do you protect it? Or if you're looking to purchase, how do you protect that? And we've got a few ideas for you, haven't we, Richie? I think you picked out 3 of the best.
3.
Yeah, we were going to aim for 10.
3.
He only came out with 3. So are you going to do it in any particular order? Are you going to do your best one first, or are you going to is it going to be like bronze, silver, gold?
I was just going to do it in order 1, 2, 3. So I don't know if it's the best one. You can make your own mind up as we go through. So should we kick off?
Let's kick off
with
number 1.
Yeah, why not? Go for it. Number 1's always a good place to start. So securing deals. First thing I'd always say to you, first little tip, and you might want to write some of these down tonight, get a pen and paper. If not, I don't know, type them into your phone, do something like that. If you've got a good memory, just remember them. So the first one, don't tell the agent too much. Okay, don't tell the agent too much. More often than not, the agent will ask you what you intend to do. And, that's unfortunately what some newbies do. They tell agents absolutely everything. So you're going to look around a property and the agent asks you, so what are you going to do with it? And of course, then a newbie developer shows themselves up when they say, oh, we're going to do this. I'm thinking about doing that under permitted developments. I'm going to convert this. I've got an idea of that. Let me ask you a question. Question time tonight. You don't get away with a question. You can ask us questions. We can ask you questions as well. Do you think that well-established developers tell agents everything, even when they have established relationships? No. The answer is no on that one, and I know you all got that. The answer is definitely no. Less is often more. You can get away with actually saying to an agent, and if he says, what are you going to do with this? You say, I'm not going to tell you, am I? Do it with a little bit of a smile, a little bit of a cheeky grin, and say, no, I'm not going to tell you. Why? And spin the whole thing around, turn it completely 180, and say to the agent, so what do you think? What would work well here? What have others suggested when they've looked around? And that's really important, because the agent's asking you, he's only going to tell someone else what you've told them. Also, just to add to this as well, you need to look like a credible developer. You're not going to get recommended to the vendor, okay? So the agent's got to recommend you to the vendor. It doesn't matter whether you've got the money, they've got to actually recommend you to the vendor that you're going to follow through, that you're a credible developer. So if the agent doesn't think that you're going to better follow through with the deal, you're not going to get anywhere. And some newbies in their actions and their comments can show themselves up. I went to look around the building with someone once, and I'm not going to mention their name for 1 minute, but they walked into this building, and it was a big office building. Agent met us there, and I walked in, and I didn't say a lot at all. And I was just chatting to the agent, just casually chatting, but not in detail. And other said person walked in, and it was a big open space, and went, "Oh, this is big, isn't it?" You give yourself away as a newbie straight away. So the first thing, when you go around, don't tell the agent too much. Less is more. That's my first point.
Less is more. Yeah, I think the tendency can be to try and show off a bit, because you want to establish that credibility. But we have definitely seen that happen before, where people will. It's in the agent's interest, basically, to share the best, most profitable outcome for that building with all and sundry. So you might feel like a special friend when you're going round. He'll be very warm to you, I'm sure. But the next person that comes round will just be downloading your ideas to them. Fantastic. Okay, that's number 1. So I've got a mental mark out of 10 for that one. So I'm doing the bronze, silver, gold thing, even if you're not. So number 2, Richie, what's number 2 on your list?
Okay, so my next thing on my list, and by the way, Raj has just joined us. Raj, we're talking about deal security this evening, if you didn't pick up the title. So that's what's going on here. I've just done my first one. You've missed that. You have to listen to the replay to get the first point. Second point, dealing with vendors, okay, and option agreements. Now, we talk about option agreements, and funny enough, with some of our students this morning, there was a question we come up about option agreements. I have seen in my 40 years in this industry, or nearly 40 years, not quite, I'm still quite young, too many new developers get caught out on option agreements, okay? They're trying to do something subject to planning, don't want to put the money down, so they do an option, exchange an agreement, and they think everything's going to be okay. But people often download a free option agreement. just off the internet. You can go on the World Wide Web. It's a fantastic tool, and you can go on there and you can download an option agreement, you know, or borrow one off for someone else. Students would occasionally ask us, do you give option agreements out? No, you need to put a document together. You need to get a robust option agreement. If you're going to go into something and you're taking an option on something, and then you're going to be speculating and spending some money on that, you know, is that a good idea? You know, because ultimately, when you get planning, if you're doing an option agreement subject to planning and you get planning permission, it goes to the site. It's not yours. It goes to the site. So if you haven't got a robust agreement, you know, where are you going to stand? You need to understand that you're risking the money and your time is important. As I say, if you get that planning, it's on the site. Let me ask you another question, because I'm throwing questions back at you. Second question to our little family of CEOs this evening. And by the way, if you're new, you can be one of our chief executive officers this evening. Do you think that established developers download free documents or just use one that they've had before? You know, just tweak it a little bit. No, they won't. They'll have an agreement drawn up by a solicitor, even if it's similar to that used before. Property development, okay, property development is a business first and foremost, okay. In fact, it's a business, and then it's about property, and it's as much about doing business deals as it is understanding how to develop. A really important thing, I want you all to remember that, and those that know us know we harp on about that all the time, okay. You need to be a savvy business person. Show them you're serious and treat the option agreement seriously. You know, it's soon a giveaway. If you go to someone without a proper option agreement, they're soon gonna understand that. And beware one thing, even if you have got an option agreement, I'm going to leave you with a thought on this second point here. The one with the deepest pockets will always win. Okay, so if there's a problem, you're going to fight someone, and don't forget they've got the value attached to the land. If they want to do you over, if they've got deeper pockets than you, they're probably going to win. So my second point here is dealing with vendors and option agreements. Just be really serious about it. If you have to do it for your first project, we strongly suggest to our students that they don't. So I strongly suggest to you guys is if your first project, don't do an option agreement. If you have to, do it very, very seriously. That's my second point.
That's your second point. I like this whole thing about asking the audience. This is new. I look forward to whatever question you're going to ask them on the third one. I would just add to that last point about the fact that it's your first deal. You want to make that one as simple as possible. There's all sorts of other things going on when you do your first deal. Your team hasn't worked with you before. You haven't got the finance paid back before. That'll be your first finance. Your business is new. You haven't got anything under your belt. So, and you're learning as well. So if you're going to throw into the mix as well an option agreement and a complexity there and some risk in there that goes with that, then I would say avoid that if you can. Certainly that can come into play as you get more seasoned, get more experience, but treat that first project a little bit like an extension of your training. Make the job as easy as possible, because all these other moving parts are going to be whizzing around whilst you do it, and your second one will be so much easier. Okay, so we've had potentially bronze and silver. So I'm going to do a drum roll. What's gold?
Okay, point number 3. And by the way, it looks like Tanya and Bryn's just joined us. Hello, if you are new to us, welcome to the Open Doors show here. We're just talking about deal security. You missed the first 2 points, but you can catch it on a replay when it goes up on YouTube next week. We'll tell you all about that later on. So the third point about securing deals, okay, it's don't tell too many other people about the deal that you're doing. Treat it like a game of cards. Play your cards close to your chest, okay? Think of a game of poker. You don't want to give anything away. I've seen too many newbies, and I'm sorry to keep using that word, get excited by deals, and they go around there telling everyone, and they splash it all over social media. So my third question, you're right, I have another question. Do you think, family of CEOs out there this evening, and by the way, Bryn and Tanya, you're part of our CEO family now, do you think established developers plaster all over social media about their latest projects that they've been looking at? My experience, no. Contain your excitement, people. Contain your excitement. Keep the deal knowledge amongst just those that need to know, okay? don't tell anyone else. Because what happens is people go out and they tell all sorts of people. Remember though, please, consultants, if you tell your consultants, yes, you might need some consultants. I know you're going to say, Clapson, we need to talk to our architect about the deal. Of course you do, but don't tell any more than you have to, because consultants work for different developers. You know, loose lips, sink ships, all that sort of stuff. They just will casually chat away. Oh, you know, I looked at a scheme the other day with someone, it's a really interesting scheme. That developer says, wow, what was that about? Before you know it, that developer, who may be more established, more experienced, better relationship with the agent than you, nicks the deal off you. And talking about agents, remember, agents know different developers. Now, I'm not telling you something you don't know there by any means, but agents do know different developers. So they could give things away. And remember, your friends might know different developers. And it's a common thing. You're going to get excited. You're going to go out there. You know, you're going to just tell people, but contain yourself until you secured it. Just a small slip, one small slip could give something away and you could lose the deal. So that's my third point. All about really just play your cards. Play your cards very close to your chest.
Yeah, I think, well, we've certainly seen that before, where particularly out of area, actually, if you end up looking at a property where perhaps you're having to bring in a potentially, you know, a contractor or somebody to have a look at the project, and you don't operate locally, it's a new area, you don't know the contractor, then yeah, it can get, you know, you don't have that relationship there. So yeah, if you're sharing the sort of the secret of your success for the property with the contractor, then yeah, you can certainly see how things might slip away from you. So wow, fantastic. So that was bronze, silver and gold. I'm not sure which order I put those in. Do you want to just summarize what they are, just so that we can write them down?
Yeah, so grab a pen and paper, just write these key 3 things down. And I'd say these are the top 3 things about securing a deal. Don't tell the agent too much, okay? Don't tell them too much. Certainly do not go into the building going, oh, wow, this looks big. Don't give away that you're a new developer. You don't need to. When you know how to build credibility properly, one of the things we teach our students is how to build brand and credibility, then you don't have to act like a newbie. You certainly don't have to blag, that's for sure. So don't tell the agent too much. The second thing, dealing with vendors and option agreements. An option agreement is really important, okay? If you're going to have an option agreement, get it drawn up properly, but remember, you still have an element of risk. The one with the deepest pockets would generally win. And thirdly, keep these sealed up. Don't tell too many people too much about what you're doing. Even the friends, even family, not until you secured the deal a little bit further. Play your cards very close to your chest. This is a business. There you go. Fantastic. Top 3 tips.
Love it. So get your questions coming in. We've got a few come in already. Let's have a look. We've got one here from, no, where was it? Stephen, I think. Stephen, yeah. Stephen asked, should you have a cover story when you go on a viewing? All a bit cloak and dagger. What do you think?
A cover story. I'm not sure what, Stephen, I don't know what a cover story is. If you mean, do you have to blag? No. Okay, you definitely don't have to blag. So, you know, in terms of, good evening, Clive. Clive's just joined us. Hello, Clive. I haven't spoken to you for a while. I trust you're well. Sorry, I keep spotting people join us and clicking on, and we know a lot of you out there, so it's quite nice to just sort of say hello. Hello, Clive. Anyway, so look, what you don't have to do is you don't have to blag. You're a developer. If you know how to build credibility and brand, Stephen, okay, if you get that right, you can go in and look at any project, and I can tell you a commercial agent will treat you the same as they would treat a new developer. If they feel you've got the ability to follow through and deliver on a deal, they'll treat you the same as anyone else. Now, so that's certainly, you don't have to go in and pretend you're some big hot shot and you've developed all these other projects, because I tell you what, you get caught out straight away. Even if you say, I'm from out of town, yeah, I used to develop in Birmingham, but now I'm looking in Manchester, and yeah, you know, looking at the scheme, and yeah, done a lot of work in Manchester, and the agent turns around and said, yeah, Manchester, I worked in Manchester for 20 years. What schemes did you work on? Now you're in trouble, okay? You just don't need any of that stuff going on. So you go in there, okay? It's all about how you assemble a team around you, how you work off the credibility of the entire team. Can't go into the detail of that this evening, I'd be here all evening talking around that. But that's what we teach our students, how you put that together. And when you go in there, in terms of a cover story, My point's about don't giving too much away. You just say, I want to have a look around. I'm interested in the building. What are you going to do with it? I haven't decided. You know, I've got various options available to me. So you don't have to have a cover story. In fact, you don't have to say too much at all. You know, in fact, what I can tell you, if you spin this around, like I said to you earlier, ask the agent, turn it 180 and ask the agent what he would do with it or she would do with it. Agents sing like canaries. They really do. They can't help talking. They're salespeople. So the best thing to do is have a ratio of you talking 10% and them talking 90%. Okay. And that's just by having some questions, prepping some questions. One of the things, again, we teach our students is how you prep questions to go in and go through that deal process. So you start asking the agent questions, they babble on for ages and ages. Then as soon as they finish that, you just fire another one in. And not only you not having to say too much, but actually also you're getting a lot of information back. So Stephen, no cover story necessary and no fancy clothes or dressing up required.
Excellent.
Shall we go for another one?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so well, I'll just pick up a couple of comments. I mean, Raj says, hello, A-team. Sorry I was late. Just got back at the end of your point one, but we'll catch up on replay. Raj, you'll have to. Yes, absolutely. Malcolm says, what's the agent's attitude to granting? Granting? Are you saying granting I'm assuming you're asking there about granting an option agreement. It's not necessarily the agent's, it's going to be the vendor's attitude, okay? And it depends on the interest in the marketplace. So, Malcolm, if someone's got a building, okay, and they've got a lot of interest, they've got, you know, a dozen or so people chasing after it, and then one of those is potentially cash buyer, but a lower price, and you've got an option, but maybe a higher price, they're going to weigh it up, okay? Certainly, if the cash prices were the same as your option price, they're not going to take your option, are they? They're going to take a cash price. But generally, you're going to be in a position where an option might be considered favorably when someone is actually offering a bit more. So if a building's for sale for, I don't know, $500,000, Malcolm, and you're saying, well, I could offer you your $500,000, but I want to do it subject to possibly planning. Okay. Whereas I might go in and say, well, I'll buy your building, but I'll buy it for $450 cash. So they might think, well, you know, I'll have another 50 grand with Malcolm and do it subject to planning. There is going to be a point, having said what I talked about earlier, playing your cards very close to your chest, when you get into a subject to planning deal and you've got to have an option there is a certain amount of what you're going to have to discuss. Okay, you're going to have to give a certain amount away. Because if you said it's subject to planning and they said, what are you going to go for planning? And let's say you're in the middle of a city centre and you say, well, I'm going to build a motorbike stadium, you know, a grass track thing. Well, you're never going to get planning on that, so they're wasting their time. So you're going to have to give an element of it away. So I think generally agents will, their attitude will be positive if stuff isn't particularly moving in the market. Going ahead, we talk a lot about what's going on in the marketplace. In fact, Ian, I'll tell you at the end, we've got a webinar we're going to put out next week. We're talking about all that's going on in the current marketplace. And you know, what I can tell you is that, you know, at the moment with a surplus stock coming to the market, there's going to be possibly more vendors through their agents willing to accept an option agreement. So there you go. Hopefully that's answered that question.
Fantastic. So we've got a follow-up from Sean, who asks, if you have a cast iron option agreement and the owner does the dirty on you, can't you just sue them? What do you think about that?
Well, Sean, yes, you can. Sean, you definitely can. If they do the dirty on you, can definitely sue them. But what I said, it depends who's got the deepest pockets. The one with the deepest pockets wins. What do I mean by that? So I don't think there's anything as such as a cast iron document, because that's why, you know, if there was, lawyers wouldn't make any money. They make money arguing little points here and there and so on, you know, backwards and forwards. So yes, getting an option agreement drawn up, you are going to be in the most secure position you can be in. But the law's a funny old thing. So let's say, Sean, you do an option agreement with me, and you're going to buy a building off of me, subject to planning. We do the deal, and basically you get planning, which is now on my land, okay? And then Ian comes along, he's a crafty rascal, and Ian offers me, that's Ian there, crafty rascal, he offers me another 100,000 more than what you were prepared to pay for it, okay?
I'm like that.
He's like that, okay? Now I might be thinking, I don't know a minute, he's a crafty rascal, but it's another 100,000 in my pocket. So I might think, well, forget Sean, I'll go with him.
Who's the crafty rascal now?
Yeah. So what's going to happen then, Sean? You're going to go, well, hang on a minute, I've got a legal agreement here. I'm going to sue you. And I might turn around to you and say, go on then, Sean, sue me. So now you've got to dip your hand in your pocket and you've got to go for solicitors. Now, of course, if you win, you might get all your fees back. But in my experience over many, many years, there are lots of shades of grey in any legal agreement to do with any business, let alone an option agreement. There's always going to be a shades of grey. So if there's any little wiggle room in there, you might get a sense of where that is. And of course, your solicitor's going to say, well, yeah, we can fight this, but yeah, it's going to be a bit of a struggle because there might be some little chink in the armor there. And let's assume you then get that you get that approved, okay? But in the meantime, you know, so you've gone down the route, you're suing me. I've now sold it to crafty rascal Ian Child, and I've got all my money, and I've gone out and blown it on wine, women, and song. Okay.
In that order.
Now you get the thing awarded to you, but I don't have the money anymore, Sean. It's gone, or I've moved it into another company. I don't have to spend it on wine, women, and song. I've moved it around. Okay. So you just can't find it. So yes, whilst you've been awarded that, I might say, well, I'll settle on £50 a week, Sean, and I'll pay you back over the next 352 years. So what I'm saying is it can happen. Now you might think that doesn't happen. I can tell you 2 years ago, a guy I knew trying to get into development, sadly, just one of those people that trying to give it a go. We often try and help and educate him, take him on a program with us, but no one's going to give it a go. Got royally shafted with a farmer, did a deal with a farmer on an option agreement, got planning, and the farmer basically stuck two of them up to him at the end and said, sue me. He was then presented with an option by a solicitor, and he didn't unfortunately have a proper option agreement drawn up, and his solicitor basically said, well, we can give it a go, but I don't think you're going to get anywhere. And for what I know about Mr. So-and-so, he's like a dog with a bone, he won't let it go. And he'll just fight and fight and fight. So they had to choose to walk away because they didn't have thousands of pounds to spend on it. So Sean, it's sad, but often is the way you can often protect against that. It's going to protect you more if you've got a really good solicitor. Don't go to a little backstreet solicitor and try and save a couple of £100. If you go to a decent solicitor, okay, so maybe, you know, rather than spending £400 or £500 on an agreement, maybe you're going to spend 600, 700, 800. But actually, if it's a well-known solicitor that's known for their, you know, their authority in the industry and within the geographical area, then that individual, that vendor knows that you're serious. And if you move in the same social circles, you can damage their reputation, and most people prefer to protect their reputation than anything else. So there we go, few things on option agreements and what you can or can't do there in suing people. Hopefully that answers Sean's question.
Fantastic. You got another one?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, where are we? Let's have a look. Darren says, roughly what are the legal costs for a fairly standard option agreement? I sort of answered that. What I'd say, Darren, okay, so the comments I just made then, just sort of throwing them around. But I suspect if you think about it, generally most solicitors are going to charge you a few £100 an hour, okay, a decent solicitor. They'll have a standard template, and of course they can then bespoke that for what you want. So I would think most solicitors would charge you at least a couple of hours. So there's probably, you know, £400 or £500 there to get an option agreement drawn up. A more pricey solicitor is probably going to charge you 300 and something pound an hour. So that's where my 700 or 800 comes in. Might be a bit more. It really does depend. It is job specific. You know, it depends what else you've got on. If you've got something a little bit more complex, or there's different, you know, different titles in the land, that's going to add another complexity to it. So it can be a little bit complex, in which case those prices might go up. So what I would say is don't take that as read and go, well, that's what you told me to allow. Just ask your solicitor, Darren, ask your local solicitor, and they'll give you some prices and they'll give you a bit of a guide. So hopefully that helps Darren's one there. Okay. Let's have a look. So next question. Okay, so here's the question. Sorry, I'm just reading it. I should read it out aloud. That's not going to work otherwise, is it? Do you think, so this is slightly off of the option agreements and deal security, but I guess it's totally related. Do you think that house prices are going to decline next year? Do you want to comment on that one, Ian?
I can. That's a bit left field. So the answer, I think, my opinion is yes. We had yet another report come out this week from a renowned commercial agent, and they said, from memory, that it was going to decline by 1.5%. So residential house prices is going to decline by 1.5% by December next year. But then they're going to pick back up again, and they reckon that we will be back where we were pre-COVID by the middle of the following year, so 2022. And they're also quite bullish about the kind of 5-year movement. So they reckon that between now, 2020 and 2025, there is going to be, I think it was an 18% increase in residential prices. And I have to say there's been lots of other similar reports that have come out, but clearly you've got some pretty key variables there. I think you've got lots of factors that are influencing house prices at the moment, with regards to stamp duty, with regards to recession, with regards to people working from home and COVID. It's all going on, and the dust hasn't settled. A big factor is going to be how hard are we going to be hit with unemployment. I think there's some projections that we're going to be up to 7.5%. But potentially more, who knows? And of course, that has a big impact on people's desire to move. We've certainly seen someone like the top end of the market who have got perhaps some larger asset base. They've elected to move, and we're seeing some shifts in that kind of £1 million plus category. That's been driving quite a big proportion of the market and the sales recently. But you can expect, as things move forward on coronavirus, and hopefully we get some form of closure on that in the new year, if we're able to see some sustained sort of positive signs from a recession perspective, then I think confidence comes back, and we're likely to see that that bounce come back in terms of the house prices going up. But for next year, I would say they're going down before they go up, which makes a lot of sense, and lots of commentators are saying that. Good news for developers, of course, is that if you decide that you want to build something today, then by the time you've got it in the market, it's likely to be the middle of 2022, which is when they're saying that they will be back to pre-COVID levels. So you've got an opportunity to buy low potentially, because there's going to be some fairly obvious suppression of prices on softening of prices on non-residential stock, commercial, retail, industrial, and so on, because of the recession, and because obviously of all these changes that are happening. So you could buy low and then put your products back in the market when things bounce back.
There we go, Adam. Hopefully that's answered your question. Right, I'm going to pick up a couple of things here that's come in. Let's sweep these all up together. So first of all, just as a comment added in, Dan says, know who Dan is? Dan's a developer out there. Dan says we spend £1,500 on our option agreements. There we go. So, you know, you're going to spend the money, you're going to get the results. Then Vicky's put a comment in here. Can your option agreement put a note on the vendor's title deeds at all as a bit of security? And Minhaj has put in, and he's the same, all linked, so you must all be in the same place. So hopefully you're not, because you've got to be socially distanced. It says if you're registering an RX1 at Land Registry, there you go, Vicky, that's what you're talking about there, following an option agreement, surely you're safe. Or what comeback do you have? Okay, so an RX1 is what you're thinking of there, Vicky. You put this security on the site so they can't sell it. Okay, but all that means is they can't sell it. So if I'm the dodgy vendor now, okay, forget Ian, he doesn't need to be a cheeky rascal in this example. And I basically decide to, you've got planning now, Vicky, on my site, okay, or Minhaj there. So you've got planning on my site, and I go, thank you very much. I think I'm going to develop that out. So I choose to develop it out, and your option agreement's a little bit iffy, but you've got an RX1 slapped on me. I'm just going to develop it out. I hold that property. Maybe I rent it out, okay? Maybe I don't sell it, because an RX1 only comes into play when I sell the property. And all that means is someone's got to charge over it. So if I go to sell it, and the solicitors will say, hang on a minute, Vicky has got an RX1 over this, you have to now settle Vicky's claim of X. Okay, so in theory, you can do that. But of course, if I never sell it, we never get a claim. It's there, but I don't ever have to sell it. I can pass it down in my inheritance to my children, etc., etc. So I never sell the thing. Of course, you can now force me to try and sell it, and an RX1 doesn't give you the ability to force someone to sell a property. So yes, it does help. All these things help, but they all have elements of risk. So hopefully that has answered that question. Shall we pick up another one?
Let's have a look. Well,
I've got one here from Raj. While you're looking for one, I'll do this one, and then you can think of the next one. Because this is a good one, because he says, Raj says A team at the beginning. So I like it. Anyone that says A team, we're easily won over, Raj. He says, if you're a newbie and you have a site which you have made an offer on and it's accepted, and you go for the money and find it difficult to get funded because you are a newbie, so delays happen. So do you get the funding first before making the offer, so you do not tarnish your relationship with the agent? Okay. There's a bit of yes and no in this. Okay. Here we go. Because you can quite comfortably put an offer in on a project and not necessarily have all the funding. Okay. Because if you had to wait for a decision in principle for every time you want to put an offer in, one, you're going to get delayed putting offers in, and two, you'll probably find that your commercial broker would get pretty peed off with you, because every time that you try to put an offer in, you want a decision in principle off of him in an email of some description. Okay, and a decision in principle is definitely not an offer of funding. Okay, so you've got a bit of chicken and egg. What you're often going to be asked for is proof of funds. Okay. So there are ways that you can get your commercial funders to give you some correspondence, a certain type of letter that says that they will support you. And indeed, if you're going to be putting private funds here together as well, which a lot of people will, if that's something you're not thinking of, you want to be thinking about bringing private funds to the table, because it's very effective. And you need to show evidence of those private funds. There are ways that you can pull that together and get copies of people's bank statements and package it up in a very legitimate fashion to prove that you've got proof of funds. So there are some standard documents that you can have available. You can have to refresh them periodically as you go forward. But what you can have, Raj, is you can have some documents that you can submit to try and get those proof of funds across the table. In terms of tarnishing your reputation, if you do it all the time, yes, okay. But if you put an offer in, you can more often than not, if for some reason you just don't get the funding, you can often find a reason to pull out that you don't want to do it, okay? Because quite often you're going to put an offer in, and you might then explore the numbers a bit more, the GDV. You might uncover things with your solicitor and make you want to pull out. So you can often find a reason to pull out if it's a bit of a one-off. But certainly if you do it all the time, that's no good. Next question, Ian.
The next question. I've got one here from Helen, who asks, what are the most common mistakes you see people make on viewings? Which I think I can probably have a go at. So yeah, there's quite a few common ones. The first one is actually not having a viewing checklist. You need to kind of approach viewings with kind of regimental, kind of military precision. You want to try and systemize it. Have a list of questions ready that are specific to the project, and also questions that you want to ask the agent. So you've got two things going on there. Yes, you're trying to find out stuff about the property and get the ins and outs, but also what you're trying to do, back to Rich's point earlier, is get a bit of an inside track from the agent. You want them to spill the beans on what the previous developer that went round was, what their ideas were. So, and you're also trying to build up a bit of rapport as well, and just kind of build that relationship. So make sure that you've got a checklist when you go in. I think the other thing to do is to go in early. So go there, park up half hour before, do a recce, just have a look at the lie of the land. We're kind of quite lucky in this day and age that we've got, you know, Google Street View and so on, and so we can actually look around most of the streets in the UK now, in the comfort of our living rooms. But actually, there's no substitute for getting out there and having a look yourself. So get there early and just kind of get the lie of the land. And I think the other thing to add, which is something that most developers don't do adequately, is have basically a viewing kit. Have a viewing kit in the back of the car, which you just take round on every viewing you go in. So often you see people that have you encounter situations, particularly if you're doing conversions, where you might be looking at a semi-derelict building, certainly not a residential building, all sorts of nooks and crannies. So you need a torch, you need a camera, you need tape measures, you need a portable ladder is another good one to keep in the back of the car, just in case you need to get out and take photos and have a look around in a bit more depth. And then obviously things like business cards, and don't forget your branding. There's a great opportunity, particularly when you're on site. So potentially some of the viewings that you might be doing are actually a place where you're going to have to, it's going to be a hard hat area, in which case make sure that you've got your logo of your brand all over your high vis, all over your hard hat, and probably a bit much on the boots, but just make sure that you've got steel toe cap boots in the back of the car. So you've kind of got that you've got everything that you might need in one place in the back of the car. It goes everywhere with you, and you can pick it up at the drop of a hard hat.
Hey, little joke at the end there. I like that. There you go, Helen. Hopefully that's useful. We talked to Vicky about putting that security on. She went, thank you so much, smiley face. And Clive said, my recent option agreement with a good Oxford solicitor cost around £2,000. Money well spent. If you put these agreements in place, it is money well spent. Okay, let me just go back up here. There was a question here. Andrew's question. So Andrew says, so good evening, Andrew. He says, when you're a new developer, if you're asked how long you've been developing, common question, should you expose yourself by telling them the truth, i.e. that you're a new developer? I'm glad you clarified what exposing yourself meant, because it's not that sort of show, Andrew. So, Andrew, yeah, you don't blag, okay? But it's how you say it. So you've got a choice. So if you go out to look at a development and the agent says to you, Andrew, are you new? How long have you been developing? And you say, well, no, literally just started, to be honest with you. It's been my first project. Haven't done any development before. Learning the ropes a little bit. Just got a bit of education, and just see how we go. Want to make a few quid. Or alternatively, you could go in there and definitely never tell. Even if you've got to get educated, but don't have to go and tell people you've got educated. That's not the way to do it. Okay, so you could go in there, Andrew, and say, so the agent says to you, Andrew, are you new to development? And you could, I don't know what your background is. Maybe you've got some buy-to-lets or something. So you might say, yeah, the business here that we've set up is relatively new. I've had a number of businesses in the Oxford area. Let's choose Oxford. You possibly don't live in Oxford. That doesn't matter. So I've had a number of businesses in the Oxford area. Over the last 10, 15 years, had quite a bit of property interest, and recently tried to. We've decided to transition into property development, and myself and my team, we've got over 200 or 300 years worth of experience. Got a very comprehensive team in place. You probably know some of them: architects, so-and-so, structural engineer, and you put together the team. You're the CEO, Andrew. You are the CEO. You're the property CEO, hence the name of the company on the screen behind us. This is what we teach people to be: is to be the CEO of a company. And just take this very, very simple analogy and think about this, and useful for anyone else that thinks about this. If you go away tonight, just we're conscious of time, so we're going to try and do a couple more questions if we can. But if Richard Branson walked into that same agent and he says, I've just transitioned into property development, I've got a great team together, is that agent going to go, sorry, Richard Branson, we're not going to deal with you? Because Richard Branson's got some great skills as a CEO. And if he operates as a CEO, they don't expect him to be laying the bricks. Andrew, they will not be expecting you to lay the bricks. If you can portray yourself, you can come across with the right gravitas as a CEO and build the right credibility and brand around you, you can answer that question with confidence. You do not need to blag. You can tell them that you're totally new and transitioning to it, and they will love you and want to deal with you. There we go. Hopefully that was useful. Shall we see if we can get a couple of others in quick?
Well, Jan's got one which I think is linked to that. Why would a commercial agent want to get to know me if I've never done development before? Well, I think the answer there is that we will ultimately run out of old developers because, contrary to popular belief, they do get older and then they stop developing. And for all of the agents, in fact, everybody in the construction industry is pretty much reliant on new developers coming through. So there's definitely a bit of a hurdle there you've got to get over in terms of credibility, as Richie says. But once you've done that, what they're looking for is the ones that are likely to stay the course. The ones that are gonna do one development, but then they're gonna do 2, 3, 4, and they're gonna make a career out of development, because those are the relationships that that basically pay the bills for everybody else in the industry. So so I think when it comes to, you know, agents are no different to anybody else who gets a fee from property. They're looking for people that are gonna buy properties from them on you know, multiple times, and that's of course how you know, the first point of contact for commercial agents typically is in their little black book, and of course their little black book is filled with names of people who they think are most likely to buy and yeah, most likely to proceed. So that's where you want to end up.
Good stuff, good stuff. Whose question was that one?
That was Jan.
Jan, well done. Hopefully that's good. Andrew says, thank you, Richie. Thoroughly understood. Good. I'm pleased you understood that. That's cool. Right, last question we're going to put in. Apologies if we haven't answered all your questions. There's still quite a lot in the chat box. We don't get through them all. I do apologise, but hopefully you've had a good flavour this evening. Grant, you're the lucky one this evening. Grant's question. Hi, Richie and Ian. Been missing you guys. I don't know what that means. Does that mean you just missed the shows, or does that mean you've been missing us? Either way, we're going to take it as you've been missing us. What happens, Grant says, when options when option agreed on, planning approved, and vendor hasn't declared adequately, and council finds irregularities with vendor's offer or property status? I presume there would be a get-out clause in the option agreement, but money may have already been committed. Yeah. So I think the gist of what Grant's question is here is, what if you actually put an option agreement in place, okay, and then there's problems? So the vendor hasn't declared certain things, there's certain issues. Well, you know, can you get your money back? I think the reality here is buyer beware. Unfortunately, probably not, Grant, okay? You can possibly get something like that written into an option agreement, but ultimately, you know, your solicitors have got to do the work. You've got to delve into this. So all the time your solicitors are uncovering stuff, okay, and they're doing their searches. Maybe there's a problem with a bit of ransom strip that was you know, the vendor said was his, and your solicitors understood that it's not his. Your solicitor's job is very early on to find these almost showstoppers out. They're going to look for these, okay, do all their searches, all their investigations, all their inquiries. It could be that your vendor is using the building without planning permission. Now, just as an aside, Grant, as an example, I bought a house a few years ago for myself to live in, and in the back garden was a very nice office building. Okay, very nice office. Well, it was like a summer house building. It was a big, nice big timber framed oak building, etc., etc. But it doesn't matter anyway. It was a nice big building in the back of the garden, and we quickly found out with my lawyer it didn't have planning permission. So, and it was over the size that you could get away with under permitted development. So so we basically put a halt on it, and we said to the vendor, you better get planning permission on that retrospective. Now, we didn't think it was a problem, and being in the industry, I had a feeling it wouldn't be, but I wasn't going to spend my money. So we put a halt to proceedings. We held everything, and he had to go away and get retrospective planning. We wanted to buy the property, so we did go ahead. But that reality is, what you could do, Grant, is you could get into a situation where you've already expended some solicitors' costs, and then you find something out, and unfortunately those solicitors' costs are probably going to be at your loss. If you ended up in a situation where you'd actually gone through and legally completed, well, you've legally completed, so probably after that time there's probably no comeback, because that's what your lawyers are there for. So, you know, it can be a bit complex, but this is why your solicitor gets in there early and looks at stuff. It's probably not a lot different than doing a legal pack at an auction. You know, once you bid, you're deemed to have a look and reviewed the legal pack and understood it. You can't go back afterwards and say, oh, by the way, there's a clause so and so, so and so. No, you've deemed to have read it. And ultimately, by the time you exchange, forget even completion, by the time you exchange on a property, you're deemed to have got the right advice from your lawyer that everything's okay. So just be very careful, Grant, if that's something that one wants to do. There we go. Hopefully that's answered that question. Guys, it's 10 to 8, so we don't want to go over time. Hopefully that's been useful. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. A few of you that's joined a little bit later. I see Jason, Jennifer, Marilise, you guys have just joined on a little bit later. Teresa, I think. As always, the shows are recorded. The team will be putting it up on our YouTube channel. So you just go onto YouTube, type in Open Door, and it will be up on YouTube, if not tomorrow, first thing next week, so you can pick that up and go from there. So that's been a good show. Anything to sort of finally say before we sign off, Ian?
I was just going to say we've obviously just started lockdown. So I had a webinar with some of our students earlier today, and one of the things that I thought was a great idea for lockdown, we've got 30 days allegedly, and 30 days is quite a nice time to be able to set yourself a little challenge to do something, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Doesn't necessarily need to do with property. It could be health, fitness, whatever. But yeah, so I throw that out as a challenge to you. See if you can find something that you could do over the next 30 days until the 4th of December, when hopefully all of this will come out of lockdown again, because you can actually achieve quite a lot, particularly when you know that it's only for 30 days. You can achieve, yeah, 30 days is nothing. So yeah, try and make the most of what's going to be otherwise, I think, quite a testing time, as always, in lockdown.
And keep coming back here every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock. This is your 45 minutes, or just a little bit more sometimes, of non-stop positivity. Next week's show, all being well, Dan Stiles is coming back. Some of you may remember Dan had to cry off sick a few weeks back. Dan Stiles is a project manager in the QS, so he's going to come on the show to take your questions. Been on quite a few months back, great value on the show, really experienced guys. So next time, same time next week, 7 o'clock, Dan will be on the show for us. Please, as we sign off, please, if you've enjoyed the show, put your thanks in the chat box. Always nice to see those as we wrap up. Just a couple of things just to announce out there, which could be of interest to some of you. We are a training company, but we never really push any of the training we do. If people want to work with us, then they can. But just to mention something, because people have asked us to put something together. A lot of people have asked us, they don't really have enough time at the moment or commitment to go on a full mentorship program. And what else could we do? So we've actually put 2 events together before Christmas. It's called a fast track program, 3 days in November and 3 days in December of online training by myself and Ian. So if you don't like myself and Ian, you wouldn't want to attend. But myself and Ian are going to try and consolidate as much as we can from our 6-month program into it. If it's of any interest to you at all, pop onto our website, propertyceo.co.uk, pop onto the training tab and look at fast track. We're just doing 20 places in each one. Might be of interest to you, so I just thought I'd mention that, because a few people said, "Oh, could you just put that out there? Tell us where we can find details of it." So literally just been launched a day or so ago, so that's out there for you. So there we go. That's the end of the show. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. Looking in the comments here, you have Ranjit from Property Investor News says, another great show by Team RC and IC. Ranjit, Property Investor News, we love you, and what a great read that is. Raj says, thank you, 18, for your superb guidance. Another excellent show delivered with real property passion. We like to think so, Raj. That's what we're about. No BS, no fluff, just a bit of passion and a good bit of knowledge. Anthony says, thanks. Vicky says, thank you so much, as always. Great content and highly entertaining. Thanks, 18, says Yvonne. Thanks, guys, says Andy. Rebecca says, thanks, guys. Dan says, great show. Guy says, great session. And Doral says, as usual, great show. Doral, everyone else, thanks for attending. Have a good evening. Enjoy your week of lockdown. See you next Thursday, same time, same place. Goodbye.
Bye.